Rare have just announced a pretty fundamental shift in how Sea of Thieves is going to be updated going forward, and honestly, I think this is the first developer update in quite a while that's made me stop and think. Not because they've shown us some massive new feature, quite the opposite, actually. Season 21 launches in September, and there isn't a big shiny headline feature attached to it. No new voyage, no new tall tale, no giant cinematic reveal. Instead, the focus is something the community has been asking for since the dawn of time itself. Fix the game. We've been saying that for a long time now, and I don't think that's a controversial statement anymore. Everywhere you look, people have been saying exactly the same thing. Stop updating the game and just fix it. So, if Rare are actually committing to that, and I suddenly see loads of people complaining that Season 21 doesn't have some massive new feature, you asked for this. We've all asked for this. Now, of course, that doesn't mean Rare get a free pass, quite the opposite, because now comes the difficult part. Deliver it. See, one thing Rare have never really struggled with is saying the right thing. We've heard plenty of promises over the years. Better communication, better quality, more transparency, bigger focus on player feedback, features taking longer so they're done properly. Sound familiar? We've heard versions of that before. The problem is, eventually words stop carrying weight when they're not consistently backed up by actions. And I don't think it's unfair to say that community sentiment is probably at its lowest point since launch. There's a lot of frustration, a lot of disappointment, a lot of players who simply stop believing announcements until they actually play the update themselves. That is where we are now. This isn't about whether the message sounds good, because it does. This is about whether Rare can finally follow through. Because according to Drew's update, there's going to be a pretty major shift in philosophy. Instead of every season needing some giant flagship feature simply because the calendar says so, they're moving away from that entirely. Features will release when they're actually ready. I've never really understood why a feature that's finished in October should sit on a shelf until December just because it needs a fancy season number attached to it. Likewise, if something clearly needs another month in the oven, give it another month. I'd much rather wait for something polished than get another feature that spends the next 6 months being patched into existence. Yes, I'm looking at you, Last Ship Standing. One example they gave us was outfit saving, something that has been announced to arrive this year. Finally! Instead of waiting for Season 22 or Season 23 or whatever happens to line up, if it's ready, it ships. Simple. They also confirmed that Season 21 itself isn't really about adding lots of new activities, it's about experiments, core improvements, looking at the sandbox, looking at systems that already exist, trying to make the actual experience of playing Sea of Thieves better. Now, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you'll know that's something I've been banging on about for ages. Sea of Thieves doesn't need another voyage every 3 months. It needs the sandbox to matter again. The best moments in this game have never been because a quest marker told you where to sail. They've always been the moments you couldn't predict. You see another ship, you decide to trust them. That goes horribly wrong, or brilliantly right. You steal something ridiculous. You lose something valuable. You improvise, you create stories. That's what made Sea of Thieves special in the first place. So hearing Rare specifically talk about reinvigorating the sandbox, that's encouraging. Very encouraging. Because if the sandbox isn't healthy, then every new feature just gets built on top of a shaky foundation. And eventually, those foundations start creaking, which is where we're at right now. They also want to involve the community much earlier in testing, trying experiments, giving feedback, seeing what works before pushing things live. Again, that's the right approach, provided they actually listen. Because feedback only matters if it changes something. We've all seen insider feedback that felt like it disappeared into the sea of the damned. Testing players isn't enough. Acting on what they're telling you is. The communication side is something else Rare spoke about. They want to share more, keep players updated, explain the roadmap as it evolves. Now, you'll forgive me if I'm slightly cautious about celebrating that one. Communication has been one of Rare's biggest criticisms for years. Not because they never communicate, but because it often arrives too late, or it's too vague, or plans quietly disappear without much explanation. We've all got memories of things that sounded exciting and then slowly faded away. So yes, more communication is good. Consistent communication is even better, but meaningful communication is what really matters. us. Tell us what's changing. Tell us why it's changing. Tell us if something isn't working. And if plans have changed, just say so. People are generally far more understanding than they're given credit for. Overall, though, I think this is the direction the game has needed. Not another race to squeeze a giant feature into every season regardless of whether it's ready. Not another flashy trailer masking 6 months of bug reports. A slower, healthier, more sustainable approach. Because if Sea of Thieves is going to be around much longer, the foundations have to be solid. So this developer update isn't the win, it's the opportunity. The win comes 6 months from now, 12 months from now, when we can look back and genuinely say, yeah, the game's in a better place than it was before. That's when promises become meaningful, because right now, they're still promises. They're good promises, sensible promises, probably the right promises, but promises all the same. Now it's Rare's turn to prove that they mean them. Wait, hold on a moment. This one's going to ruffle some feathers. Season 21 is about to do something that I honestly thought Rare would never have the guts to try. They are turning diving off. Not just for one thing either, everything, excluding Hourglass, of course. Following the feedback and data from Season 20, where raid voyages no longer let you dive straight into the action with world events, Drew confirmed that Season 21 is taking it much further. For the entire season, there will be no diving for voyages, no diving for tall tales, no diving for raids. The only exceptions are activities that actually rely on it, like Hourglass and obviously going through the portal for tall tales. Quests will still work, you just won't be able to dive to them. And this isn't just a weekend event or some tiny test hidden away in the patch notes, this is the whole season. They want to see how people actually play when they can't hit the magic teleport button every 10 minutes. And I've got to be honest, that's a massive surprise. Because if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you'll know I've spoken about diving quite a lot the past couple of years. Not because I hate it, I don't. Because I think it quietly changed Sea of Thieves in ways a lot of people don't even realize. When diving was introduced, everybody looked at the positives. You get into the action faster, less sailing, less downtime, less waiting around. And to be fair, all of that is true. If all you want to do is jump into the next activity, then diving is brilliant. But over time, something else happened. People stopped existing in the world. Every voyage became an isolated little instance. Finish it, dive again. The sea became something you skipped instead of somewhere you actually lived. You'd finish a fort with another event just over the horizon, and instead of sailing over, you'd press a button and disappear. You'd spot another ship in a distance and think, nah, dive. See an interesting island? Dive. Notice a skeleton fleet cloud forming? Dive. It became the answer to everything because why wouldn't it? It's always the fastest option. Games don't just teach you through tutorials, they teach you through rewards. If one option is always faster and always more efficient, then that's exactly what players are going to do. You can't really blame anyone for that. Rare essentially handed everybody a reset button and said, here you go, use this whenever you're finished. So everybody did. The trouble is, Sea of Thieves was never really designed around constantly resetting yourself. The magic of this game has always been the unexpected stuff. It's the ship that suddenly appears on the horizon, the random alliance, the betrayal, the Reaper sailing past while you're halfway through a vault, the Kraken deciding you've had enough fun, finding a message in a bottle that sends you somewhere completely different. Those moments only really happen when you're actually out there, not when you're loading underneath the sea every 15 minutes. I genuinely think diving has chipped away at the magic over time. Not because diving is bad, because it's too good. It became the obvious choice. And when something becomes the obvious choice, people stop making interesting decisions. Now, before anyone starts sharpening their cutlasses and types an essay in the comments, no, I don't think that diving should be removed forever. I really don't. There are loads of situations where it makes complete sense. If you've got 30 minutes before work and just want to knock something out, then diving is fantastic. There are absolutely places where it belongs. But I don't think diving has ever really been the actual problem. The problem is why people want to dive in the first place. Because if the first thing you're thinking after finishing an activity is, right, get me somewhere else, then that's telling you something. You're bored. You've mentally checked out of the server you're on. You're not interested in what's happening around you anymore. So of course, You press the button. Now, if staying on the server was genuinely exciting, if there were more reasons to explore, more reasons to sail, more reasons to bump into other crews, more reasons to chase something that suddenly appeared, then people wouldn't be desperate to reset every 20 minutes. That's where I think the focus should be, not making diving disappear forever, making the world so interesting that you don't want to use it. Because diving has never really created the boredom, it's just been the escape hatch. It lets you hit the reset button because, quite frankly, you're bored. The priority shouldn't be removing the button, the priority should be making sure you don't feel like pressing the button in the first place. And honestly, if Season 21 manages to prove that, I think it'll be one of the most interesting experiments Sea of Thieves has done in years. But this is also where the pressure really starts, because make no mistake, this isn't good news. It's potentially good news. There's a massive difference. We've heard promises before, we've heard about quality, we've heard about communication, we've heard about taking more time to get things right. This isn't the first time Rare have stood in front of the community and said, trust us. So now comes the hard part. Prove it. Because if 6 months from now we're all sitting here watching Smugglers 2.0 running at 12 frames per second whilst we're trying to figure out where our cannons disappeared to, then absolutely, we can all throw our toys out of the pram and I'll be there right with you. But until then, let's just give them the chance to earn the opportunity to prove they mean it. Not blind faith, not unconditional support, just the final chance to back up their words with actions. And if they do, this could genuinely be the turning point Sea of Thieves has needed for years. I really do believe this feels like the last chance. Not because the game is dead, it isn't, but because community trust almost is. If Rare pull this off, they can rebuild that trust. They can make people excited to log in again. They can remind everyone why we fell in love with this ridiculous pirate game in the first place. And if they don't, I honestly think the ship goes from being partially submerged to sitting at the bottom of the ocean, remembered only by the people who used to tell stories about it. The ball is completely in your court now, Rare. You've said all the right things, now show us you can actually do it. Rekindle what's left of the community's hope, because there's not a lot of it remaining. And before I wrap this up, I just want to say one thing directly to the developers. I think most level-headed people understand this hasn't exactly been an easy few years for you either. We know that there are incredibly passionate people on the team who genuinely love Sea of Thieves just as much as we do. We know game development is messy, we know plans change, we know things go wrong. But now is the time to throw caution to the wind. Be louder, be more visible, be more transparent. Talk to us, let us in, show us what you're working on, even if it's not perfect yet. Tell us when something isn't going to plan instead of waiting until the last minute. At this stage, honestly, you've got very little to lose and potentially everything to gain. The relationship between Rare and the community has always been strongest when it feels like we're sailing together, not watching each other from opposite sides of the sea. Just know this, despite all the criticism, despite the frustration, despite the heated conversations that inevitably happen, myself and so many other people in this community genuinely want you to succeed. We criticize this game because we care about it, and because we know just how incredible Sea of Thieves can be when it's firing on all cylinders. We have got your backs, but now it's time to show us that you've got ours. And as for me, I'll be keeping a very close eye on everything that happens over the coming weeks and months. If there's new information, insider changes, announcements, experiments, or anything worth talking about, you can bet I'll be covering it as soon as it happens. So if you want to stay up to date with everything going on in Sea of Thieves, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and maybe even leave a comment. But until next time, folks, happy sailing.